Saturday has a different sound. Saturday has a different sound when you are old enough to hear it properly. It doesn't arrive with the sharp metallic insistence of a weekday alarm, that jagged herald of duty and deadlines. Instead, it arrives with a shy, velvet footfall, like a secret whispered into the ear of the house. I know this now because age is a persistent teacher. It instructs the bones to ache slightly and the mind to wake long before the world demands it. The house was held in a fragile, crystalline stillness. This is the sort of silence that only exists when children are adrift in the deep, heavy currents of sleep, their dreams doing the vital, invisible work of growing. The quiet sentinel. The father was awake before the light had even begun to peel the shadows from the window panes. He didn't rise out of a sense of martyrdom. He rose because a body that carries the weight of 3 lives rarely knows how to truly let go. He lay there for a moment, suspended in the amber of the early hour. "You're already thinking about the logistics, aren't you?" a voice murmured beside him. The mother hadn't moved, her eyes still closed, but her mind was already sinking with his. "The car park at the leisure center," he whispered back, a small smile playing on his lips. "If we aren't there by 8:45, it's a disaster." "We'll make it," she said, finally opening her eyes and reaching for his hand under the heavy duvet. "We always do. But let's take those 15 minutes first." The silence is expensive these days. They lay there, anchored by each other, listening to the house breathe. Outside, the distant hum of a lone car echoed, a traveler headed toward a different destiny. The pipes clicked and settled. From down the hall, a soft, rhythmic huff of breath signaled that the smallest of his treasures was still safe in her cot. Saturday meant grace. It was a gift of 15 minutes, a pocket of time where the world stood still. There were no school bags to be frantic over, no uniforms to be ironed into military precision. It was an unspoken covenant. This morning, the world would move at a kinder, more merciful pace. The rising tide. The girls woke, as children often do, one by one, like candles catching flame. The eldest appeared first, a silhouette in the doorway with hair that was a magnificent, chaotic tangle of sleep and unspoken intentions. She carried her favorite worn-out paperback, the spine cracked from a dozen readings. Soon after, the middle child followed, her bare feet padding down the hallway with the absolute confidence of someone who knows every creak of the floorboards by heart. The youngest did not yet walk, but she made her presence undeniable with melodic chirps from her room, a language of pure joy that required no translation. The kitchen transformed into a sanctuary. The father tied his apron with a practiced knot, the same one he had used for 1,000 Saturdays. Flour dusted the mahogany counter like the first pristine snow of winter. Eggs were cracked with a sharp clack, and milk was poured in a creamy ribbon, stirred and folded until the batter became something smooth, pale, and hopeful. The requests came, the liturgy of the Saturday table. The eldest wanted banana discs and a controlled river of syrup. The middle child spoke of blueberries and cream, with a reverence usually reserved for prayer. The youngest simply pointed, her whole arm committing to the act, her mouth bubbling with sounds like loose change. As the mother watched the father flip the third pancake, a wave of nostalgia hit her. She leaned against the doorframe, a mug of steaming coffee between her palms. "My dad used to make French toast," she said softly, her eyes distant. "But only if the weather was bad. If the sun was out, he'd have us in the garden by 7 a.m. weeding the vegetable patch. I used to hate the smell of tomato plants, that sharp, green, earthy scent that stayed on your skin for hours. Now, I'd give anything to smell his gardening gloves just one more time. He made every Saturday feel like a project, like we were building a kingdom out of dirt and patience. He'd point to a seedling and say, 'That's the future, girl. Take care of it.'" The father smiled, sliding a plate toward her. "Well, today we aren't building a kingdom. We're just trying to survive the gymnastics parking lot. But I think the taking care part is the same." The mother moved through the house as if guided by a map only she could see. Backpacks opened, checked, closed again. Water bottles filled and lined up like soldiers ready for inspection. Snack bags received their offerings, little treats chosen with care and memory. She knew which child preferred what without looking. She always did. Breakfast ended the way family breakfasts tend to end. Crumbs everywhere, sticky fingers, a table that told the story better than words ever could. Then came the transformation hour. Toothbrushes sang their minty songs. Hair was combed and negotiated into submission. Ponytails rose and fell until the right one was achieved. Leotards appeared, bright and waiting. Shoes were hunted, found, and somehow misplaced again. Jackets were shrugged on, tugged straight, tugged crooked. Outside, the car waited patiently. The father opened the boot and began his careful choreography. First, the foldable buggy, placed just so. Then the backpacks, then the snack bags, then the small universe of toys required to keep the youngest content. Each item had its place, though the place changed every week, depending on needs known only to parents. And the emergency bag, the one with the spare clothes and the wipes, right on top. The children followed their familiar order. The oldest climbed in first, claiming the middle seat with quiet authority. The middle child was lifted, arms raised, feet shuffling until she found her position. She laughed as she settled, pleased with herself. The youngest stayed in her mother's arms for a moment longer, smiling broadly, watching her sisters with the serious curiosity of someone studying the world she would soon join more fully. When at last everyone was strapped in, the rituals began. "Are we ready?" the mother asked, appearing at the door. "As ready as we'll ever be," he said, wiping a smudge of grease from his thumb onto his jeans. When at last everyone was strapped in, the rituals began. A roll call, voices answering in turn, requests for music, the mother tapping notes into her phone, making lists that calmed her mind. The father resting his hands on the steering wheel, remembering roadworks from last week, choosing differently this time. The road and the riddles. When the car moved, the girls noticed. Questions came. Surprised looks were exchanged. But the road opened kindly before them. Traffic flowed. The decision proved wise. Music filled the car, and with it came games. I Spy unfolded at a pace set by the middle child, whose guesses were wide and wonderful. The family guessed wrong on purpose, delighting in her laughter, which spilled out freely and without restraint. "I spy with my little eye," the middle child announced, bouncing in her seat, "something that is invisible." "The air?" the father guessed. "No." "Your imaginary friend, Barnaby?" the mother suggested. "No, it's the wind making the trees move. Look at them dancing," she shouted, triumphant. The oldest rolled her eyes with affectionate boredom, looking up from her book. "My turn. I spy with my little eye something that starts with C. Car? Cloud? Cows?" The guesses flew back and forth from the front seats. "No," the oldest said, looking out the window at a passing cyclist and the ancient stone walls of the village they were passing through. "It's constancy. The way the church steeple is always there, even when we turn the corner. It feels like it's following us." The parents exchanged a look in the rearview mirror, a silent acknowledgement that their children were growing into thinkers, poets, and observers. They turned left, then right, rolled gently over speed bumps that made the youngest bounce and grin, stopped at traffic lights where joggers passed in rhythm and cyclists glided by with purpose. A park slipped past the windows, green and alive. Cafes lined the road, tables set outside, newspapers folded beside cups of coffee, and plates holding pastries not yet finished. Then came the bus. It pulled out suddenly, large and unapologetic. The father's foot met the brake, firm and fast. The car lurched. Gasps followed, then laughter once everyone realized they were safe. Hearts settled back into their proper places. The leisure center car park was full, predictably so. Families everywhere. Doors opening, buggies unfolding, children darting like sparrows. The search for a space felt endless until one appeared almost miraculously. They were early, just enough time. The mother and father slipped into the coffee shop next door, ordering coffee that promised strength and forgiveness. Cups in hand, they entered the center, the leisure center lobby. The middle child ran to her class with shining eyes. She stretched, warmed up, followed instructions with devotion. The mother watched, warmth blooming in her chest, understanding again why Saturdays were no longer lazy things. The father stayed back with the baby, making faces, playing games. Around them, other families waited. Stories overlapped quietly. Time passed. A group of 3 girls, all clutching sketchbooks and brightly colored water bottles, huddled around a low circular table. They were the Gymnastics Siblings Club, a collective born of shared waiting rooms. "Did you see the new floor routine?" Maya, a tall girl with a braided crown, asked as the eldest sat down. "I saw it," the eldest replied, clicking her multicolor pen. "It looks hard. My sister says the tuck jump is the part everyone misses because they're thinking about the landing before they've even finished the jump. I'm more worried about the balance beam," another friend, Sophie, chimed in, leaning forward until her nose almost touched the table. "My mom says if you look at your feet, you fall. You have to look at the end of the world." "The end of the world?" Maya giggled. "You mean the fire exit or the vending machine?" "No," Sophie insisted, her eyes wide. "The horizon. My dance teacher says the horizon is where your balance lives. If you keep your eyes on the line where the sky meets the earth, you can't wobble." The girls spent the next 40 minutes in a dense thicket of conversation, trading stickers like high-value currency, glittery unicorns for holographic stars, and discussing the relative merits of different colored leotards as if they were high-fashion critics. They talked about teachers they liked, the upcoming school play, and a shared dream of owning a cat that could do backflips. When the lesson ended, there was a gap. The playground called. Swings creaked, slides shone, laughter echoed. Parents talked, coffee cups clutched like lifelines. Plans were made for birthdays and summer holidays. The mother returned with more coffee and croissants, warm and flaky. The children ate with contentment, crumbs dusting their smiles. The second lesson arrived, the arena of dreams. Inside the gymnasium, the air was thick with the scent of chalk dust and rubber mats. The mother sat on the bleachers, the youngest squirming in her lap, their eyes locked on the eldest sister. Watching her sister balance on the high beam seemed to take the middle child's imagination away to a whole new place. She sat on the edge of the mat, her own body twitching in sympathy with every step her sister took. When the eldest executed a perfect cartwheel, the middle child jumped up, her hands clapping in a frantic, joyous rhythm. Every backflip was a miracle. To the middle sister, this wasn't just a lesson, it was a glimpse into her own future. She watched with a fierce, quiet intensity, wishing and knowing that one day, very soon, she would also be able to do just that. To defy gravity, to fly, to land with her arms held high in triumph. The lesson finished, and a flurry of activity followed. Leotards were covered by hoodies, and shoes were tugged back on. But the day was still far from over. Goodbyes were shouted to some friends, while long, lingering hugs were given to others. The Gymnastics Siblings Club decided that they shouldn't part ways just yet. A consensus was reached that they should all go together to the coffee shop for lunch. The parents pointed out the carefully packed, healthy snack bags filled with fruit and nuts, but the kids were unmoved. They explained, with the absolute certainty of childhood logic, that the hot dogs in the cafe were simply better. There was one non-negotiable condition, however. No mustard, they chimed in unison. Ketchup only, thick, red, and sweet. The baby babbled, seemingly adding her own vote to the motion, knowing she would also be given a piece of sausage that she would devour with toothless zeal. The cafe choreography. The cafe was a hive of activity. It was filled with a mosaic of the town's Saturday life. Families with sticky-faced toddlers, weary walkers in muddy boots, and people with their dogs resting under the tables. A group of police officers sat near the window, steam rising from their mugs as they took a rare break from the local station around the corner. In the corners, digital nomads hovered over their computers, typing away with an intensity that made them seem oblivious to the joyous chaos surrounding them. There was only one long table free, tucked away at the very back. The father took the lead, navigating the route with the precision of a pilot. He moved the pram through the narrow gaps between chairs, careful not to bump into a wayward elbow or a wagging tail. The order was placed, but the kitchen was struggling to keep up with the Saturday rush. The food took longer than ideal to arrive. How much longer? The kids began to ask, their voices rising in a restless chorus. 2 more minutes, the father lied gently. Be patient, it's coming, the mother added, her own stomach growling. They sat through the hangry phase with seasoned patience, distracting the baby with a plastic spoon and a game of Where's Daddy? When the plates finally appeared, steam rising from the bun-enclosed sausages, the smiles returned instantly. The world was right again. They ate with pure, unadulterated joy. The ketchup-stained faces, a testament to a successful mission. The squirrel's ladder. After lunch, the call of the outdoors was too strong to ignore. They made one more run to the playground. While the middle child engaged in a high-stakes game of hide-and-seek behind the slide, the oldest began a solo project. She began collecting fallen sticks, selecting each one with the care of an architect. At the base of a great oak tree, She began to lean them against the trunk, over and over, until a rough structure began to form. "What are you building?" the father asked, leaning against the bark. "A ladder," she replied, not looking up as she positioned a particularly sturdy twig. "A ladder for who?" "For the squirrels," she said simply, "to help them get up the tree when they're tired." The father paused, the wit of his intended joke dying on his tongue. He admired the pure, empathetic logic behind her thoughts. To her, the world was a place where even a squirrel might need a helping hand. The mother checked her watch. The sun was beginning to sit lower in the sky, and the schedule beckoned. "Time to go, everyone," she called out. The day's second act was beginning. The oldest child had her maths and English tuition lessons to go to on the other side of town. The transition back to the car was seamless, the family climbing back into their seats with the exact same choreography as the morning routine. A well-oiled machine of backpacks, car seats, and buckles. Time called them onward. The car filled again. Music returned. Jokes were told. Laughter stitched the moments together. The shopping Tetris. The tuition center was located at the bottom of a large, bustling supermarket complex. As the car rolled into the parking lot, the choreography was perfect. The oldest child climbed out, backpack slung over her shoulder, and walked bravely into her English and maths class. With 1 hour on the clock, the rest of the family headed up for the weekly shop. The father took the helm of the trolley, steering it through the fluorescent aisles, while the mother consulted her mental list. "Dinner options?" she asked, dodging a pyramid of cereal boxes. "Pizza and ice cream," the middle child shouted, her voice echoing off the linoleum. The mother laughed. "I was thinking something a bit healthier and easier to throw together. Maybe the ingredients for a big curry or a roast?" "Pizza is easy to throw together," the middle child countered. But the mother was already scanning the fresh produce, picking out vibrant peppers and fragrant coriander. Suddenly, the mother stopped. "Wait, it's Toby's birthday next weekend. We need a present." They diverted into the kids section, a chaotic land of primary colors. Toby liked superheroes. The debate was fierce. They weighed the merits of a Captain America jumper against a massive Hulk toy. They looked at a Superman backpack, debating its durability. Finally, tucked away in a dusty corner of the bottom shelf, the middle child found it. A large box containing a diverse selection of several action figures. "We don't know who his favorite is," the mother whispered. "This way, he gets all of them." At the checkout, they worked with the practiced speed of a family that does not have a second to waste. The trolley was unloaded in a rhythmic blur of scanning and bagging. Seeing the clock ticking toward the end of the tuition hour, the mother rushed back downstairs to collect the oldest child, leaving the father to manage the transaction. Loading the car had become an art form for him. He stood before the boot, already occupied by the folded buggy, 3 backpacks and half-empty snack bags. and became a Tetris grandmaster. He found narrow slivers of space between the buggy wheels for the heavy bags, nestled the eggs in a secure crevice of soft leotards, and positioned the superhero gift right on top like a crowning jewel. Every inch was utilized with mathematical precision. The great dinner debate. As the car engine hummed back to life, the air in the cabin shifted. The sun was still high, a rare gift for a February afternoon. "Activities are done," the father announced, checking the rearview mirror. "Should we head back and get started on that curry?" The suggestion was immediately met with a chorus of dissent. "I'm hungry," the oldest cried. "Can we go to the burger place next door? The one with the curly fries?" "No more burgers," the mother sighed. "We had those on Tuesday." "Pizza balls," the middle child shouted, kicking her legs with excitement. "The ones with the garlic dipping sauce at the pizza chain." The father shook his head. "We did the pizza chain last Saturday, love. Let's try to find something different." A stalemate hung in the air, the classic parental struggle between convenience and variety. Just as the father began to turn toward the route home, the mother's phone buzzed. "Oh, it's Sarah," she said, answering. After a moment of listening, her face brightened. "Wait, really? You're there now? We're actually just around the corner." She hung up and looked at the father. "Sarah's at the pub by the river. She says it's beautiful out on the terrace and the atmosphere is lovely. What do you think?" The kids didn't need to hear another word. The river, the ducks. The decision was made. The whole family headed off toward the water. It wasn't far, only a few minutes away, but it felt like a detour into a different world. The Riverside Sanctuary. By the time they reached the pub by the river for an early lunch, the air was generous and strange for February. They took a long wooden table on the terrace, situated right at the water's edge. The pub was a low-slung stone building that looked as though it had grown out of the riverbank itself. The river was a living thing. Small ripples born from a light breeze traveled across the surface like wrinkles on an old, wise face. Along the banks, the reeds were still golden brown from winter, but at their base, a fierce neon green was beginning to punch through the mud. Weeping willow branches trailed their fingertips in the current. A family of mallards drifted by, their emerald heads flashing in the sun. "Look at the ripples," the mother said softly. "It's like the water is telling a story that vanishes as soon as it's written." The youngest sat on the father's lap, mesmerized by the way the sunlight danced on the surface. She reached out, her small hand grasping at the air, as if she could catch a spark of the river and keep it. The heart of the pub, hunger and a rising breeze eventually pulled them inside, where the atmosphere shifted to the rich sensory theatre of a traditional British pub. The smell hit them first, an intoxicating perfume of roasting garlic, wood smoke from the large stone hearth, and the sharp, vinegary tang of hand-cut chips being seasoned. The open kitchen was a stage of high-speed ballet. The chefs moved in a masterpiece of choreography. They pivoted around one another with the grace of shadow boxes. A tall man in a white apron worked the pass, his eyes scanning every plate for perfection. He called out orders in a rhythmic staccato. 2 burgers, 1 sea bass, side of greens, go. The waitstaff moved with similar precision, weaving between tables with heavy trays balanced on one hand. Their movements so fluid they seemed to hum. In the far corner, the Darts Guild, a group of 4 men in thick wool sweaters, were locked in a silent, intense battle. The thwack, thwack, thwack of the darts hitting the sisal board was the rhythmic percussion of the room. One man, with a grey beard and a steady hand, took aim, his eyes narrowing. The room seemed to hold its breath until the dart landed with a soft thud. A low cheer erupted, followed by the clinking of heavy glass mugs. The family settled at a corner table, and the father pulled a well-worn board game, a classic version of Monopoly with missing pieces, from the pub's shelf. "Okay, team," he said, setting out the cardboard board. "Winner gets to choose the movie tonight. No mercy." "I want the silver thimble," the middle child shouted. "I'm the cat," the mother declared, her eyes sparkling with competitive fire. "The cat always wins on Saturdays. It's a law of physics." As they played, the chaos of the week melted away. They negotiated trades for Park Lane, argued over who owed rent, and shared a giant plate of nachos that disappeared within minutes. The father took the youngest for a short walk around the pub to look at the taxidermy and the old rowing oars on the walls, giving the mother a moment of peace to finally beat the oldest at the game. The feast of spice and stories. Home arrived near 6, and the transition into evening was seamless. The scent of chicken curry and rice, prepared in the slow cooker that morning, greeted them like a warm embrace. The aromas filled the air, instantly opening their appetites as the father brought the heavy pot to the table. "Is it spicy?" the oldest asked immediately, her eyes narrowing with suspicion. "I don't like spicy food," the middle child joined in, crossing her arms for emphasis. The father smiled, setting the steaming pot down. "I assure you both, I have not made it spicy. It's just full of flavor, made exactly how you like it." Papadums were cracked with a satisfying crunch. Naan bread was toasted until bubbly and warm, and the curry sizzled as it was ladled over pillows of steaming white rice. They sat down around the table, a circle of tired but happy faces. As they tucked in, the conversation flowed as freely as the water in the river had earlier. They relived the day, the music they had blasted in the car, the games of I Spy, and the heart-stopping moment when the bus gave them a scare. The oldest, between mouthfuls, asked to see the box of superheroes again. "Can I help wrap it?" she asked. "I want to make sure the bow is perfect." The baby sat in her high chair, erupting into fits of giggles as she was fed by the middle child, who took her role of helper very seriously. Every spoonful was met with a babble of joy and a wide, messy grin. The gentle descent, the mother's reflection. As evening settled over the house, the transformation hour in reverse began. Baths were filled with lavender-scented bubbles, and the steam carried away the last of the river air. The mother sat on the edge of the eldest daughter's bed first. She watched as the girl meticulously bookmarked her page. Tucking the duvet under her chin, the mother felt a sudden, sharp ache of love. She thought of how quickly the horizon Sophie had talked about was changing for her daughter. Soon, she wouldn't be looking for balance on a beam, but in the world at large. Stay small a little longer, she thought, brushing a stray hair from the girl's forehead. Keep looking for constancy in the steeples. The world moves fast enough on its own. In the middle child's room, she found her daughter already half asleep, clutching a stuffed rabbit. This was the child who saw invisible things, like the wind. The mother leaned down to kiss her cheek, inhaling the scent of baby shampoo and sleep. She realized then that her daughter's imagination was the family's true compass. She hoped the girl would never lose the ability to see the magic in a February breeze. Finally, she stood over the cot of the youngest. The baby was a starfish of tangled limbs and soft sighs. The mother reached out, letting the tiny hand curl around her thumb even in sleep. She thought about her own father again, the French toast, the tomato plants, the calloused hands. She realized that she and her husband were now the gardeners of this little kingdom. They were the ones planting the seedlings of memory, watering them with Saturdays like this one. We are the bridge, she realized, between the parents we lost and the women they will become. The quiet descent. Eventually, the energy began to wane. The parents descended back down to the ground floor, moving like shadows. They took care to keep the noise down, stepping gingerly on the stairs that could be temperamental and creaky. The kitchen now needed to be reclaimed. There were dishes piled in the sink, the remnants of the pancake breakfast and the curry feast. The dishwasher was loaded with mechanical precision. Leftovers were packed away into neat containers, and the counter was wiped clean. The bags were taken back to the hallway and lined up with fresh supplies for the next day. A load of laundry was set in the washing machine, the hum of the spin cycle becoming the soundtrack to their final chores. Plans were made for Sunday, whispered over the clink of glasses. The final silence. Finally, the work was done. The parents settled on the sofa, exhausted. They spent way too long scrolling through streaming menus, trying to decide what to watch. When a movie was finally chosen, they didn't see much of it. Both fell asleep halfway through the opening act. Before he closed his eyes, the father reached into his pocket and found a small, smooth river stone the middle child had given him at the pub. He smiled, holding it tight. But they fell asleep with their hearts full of joy. They knew their kids had had a great day, and they realized their lives were no longer defined by late-night clubs and greasy, dirty kebabs in the early hours of the morning. They traded those for this, the quiet, bone-deep knowledge that the struggle, the rush, and the sticky fingers were the greatest riches they would ever possess. They knew that those 3 sleeping girls upstairs were the reason to live, the reason to sustain all the struggles and the beautiful, chaotic exhaustion of this new way to have a weekend. This is the Saturday that an old man remembers, not as a blur of chores, but as a masterpiece of the mundane, a day of grace held together by the simple, miraculous act of being a family.